Hello, welcome back. So today's video is a review of Six Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim. So this is it's sort of a young adult romantic fantasy novel. Um, it's based on a fairy tale. Um, there's a few variations of it. There's The Six Swans by the Brothers Grimm, The Wild Swans by Hans Christian Andersen. Um, and I think a couple others as well. Um, so the premise of the both the fairy tales and the book, uh, basically, there's a princess with six brothers in the Grimm version, 12 in the uh, Anderson version, or 11. Sorry, 11 in the Anderson version. The brothers get transformed into swans, and uh, the princess has to rescue them. But in order to rescue them, uh, she needs to knit them. She needs to sew something, usually shirt or something like that. But she also has to stay completely silent for a certain length of time. Um, and also in the fairy tale versions, uh, there's a king who finds her, thinks she's beautiful, falls in love with her, and marries her, uh, despite her being unable to speak, or else either she'll kill her brothers or else the curse will break. Again, it depends on which version of the fairy tale you find. So in this version, which is sort of Japanese flavored, takes place in land of Kyoto, which is definitely has certain, um, like I said, it's sort of Japanese inspired would be what I would say. Elizabeth Lim, the author herself, is Chinese American from San Francisco. She's written a couple other books, Spin the Dawn and Unravel the Dusk, duology that were very well received as well. And this one again, also well received. So the protagonist of the book is Shiori, uh, princess of the land of Kyoto. She's she's a troublemaker. She's got a distinct attitude. She loves causing a little bit of mischief. Um, and is also pretty good at lying. She's also a pretty good liar. But she's still good. Like, she's a good girl. And she's just a mischievous one. Uh, and she loves her family. Absolutely loves her family. Her brothers, her six brothers, and her father. Uh, Less so her stepmother, the nameless queen, who's also called Raikama, which I forget what that one stands for. I think it might stand for, yeah, stands for the nameless queen, or seems to stand for the nameless queen. She comes from she comes from another land. She does not talk about her life before marrying the king and being brought to Kyoto. Um, but she is a fairly stern woman. Um, I will say there are some nice reveals regarding anytime we start to get a little bit of backstory regarding the relationship between Shiori and her stepmother. There's a lot of really interesting details that come about. Anyway, so Shiori is has magic, which is forbidden in Kyoto. Uh, she tries to keep it a secret. She befriends a young dragon uh, and learns magic from him. She has magic naturally. The first spell she cast was to bring a paper crane to life. Um, Kiki, who became her best friend, who is her best friend throughout the book, and she has to keep her magic a secret because, like I said, it would otherwise she would be banished. Um, Meanwhile, she is also unhappily betrothed to a fairly minor prince of a distant kingdom, a guy by the name of Takan. She does not want to. She does not want to marry him because she doesn't want to move that far away from her home and her family. She wants to stay in or near Kyoto. But her betrothed is in another place. Book starts the morning of her betrothal ceremony. She ends up running away and jumps into a lake and almost drowns. So, yeah, like I said, she's a bit reckless. Uh, that's where she meets the dragon who trains her in magic. Um, Pretty soon, her stepmother finds out about Shiori's magic, and Shiori finds out about her stepmother's magic, and concludes that her stepmother is a wicked witch, because obviously, uh, Raikama ends up turning. So Shiori goes to her brothers. They try to confront their stepmother. The stepmother turns them into cranes instead of swans, as is normal in the fairy tales. She turns them into cranes. She puts a bowl on Shiori's head, and in order to suppress Shiori's magic, and tells her that if she speaks a word, if she makes a sound, like if she makes any noise from her mouth, one of her brothers will die. For every sound she makes from her mouth, one of her brothers will die. So then Shiori, who ends up also being uh, magically transported far away, up north, in fact, to where her uh, betrothed lives. Um, she has to figure out a way to break the curse without making any noise, and while living with a bowl on her head, which can't be removed, which makes everyone think that she is involved in witchcraft of some sort, even though she has no access to her magic. And and naturally, she ends up running into her betrothed, and he is not who she expected him to be. He's much kinder, much nicer, just a much better person than she expected. And she gets to know him. She gets to know his sister, who takes an immediate liking to her, and romance develops, obviously, because young adult. So got that whole thing going on, and yeah, it's a really good book. Uh, Shiori's a very compelling protagonist. Seeing the way that she grows throughout the book, because at the start she has a bit of a tendency to let her mouth run away from her, She has a bit of a reckless side. Once she's in a position where she has to stay silent to try to find a way to save her brothers, she becomes much more cautious, much more thoughtful, and has to figure out ways to convey her thoughts without speaking, usually without even being able to write anything. There's a couple of cool antagonists, um, some very interesting plot developments, a couple of like a really good plot twist near the end of the book, one that didn't surprise me. It's very well like well developed. Like it doesn't come out of nowhere. There's a plot twist near the end of the book that is choreographed really well, so that when it happens, you don't end up actually being surprised. You get that sort of "I knew it" uh, sense of feeling. So it's I like the fact that Lim builds up to that plot twist, so that you know, so that when it happens, you are basically relieved by it. Um, there's some pretty emotional bits. The romance between Shiori and Takan is very well done. Very cute romance. Very believable. And well written book. Sort of has inspired by a fairy tale, and it goes into a few fairy tales as well. Like it's got some fairy tales as part of the setting, which is kind of neat. Story about how cranes got the red crowns on their heads, things like that. So it's got a little, so it goes into some legends within the legend type of thing, which is neat. Yeah, like I said, it's just a really good book. I definitely recommend it. Um, if you like books inspired by fairy tales, if you like young adult fiction, fantasy, yeah, it's a good book. It's worth the read. So, Six Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim. And I think that's about all I've got to say about that. The next book I read, gonna go back to another comic. Gonna be Mooncakes by Wendy Xu, Suzanne Walker, and Jomette Gill. I'll actually need to check if Zhu is how it's pronounced. XU. So yeah, this will be the next book I read, Mooncakes by Walker, Xu, and Gill. But for now, I suppose that's all I have to say about Crimson Cranes. Six Crimson Cranes. So yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And if you do pick the book up on my recommendation, I hope you enjoy this book as well. I'm sure you will. But for now, thanks for watching, and I will see you in another video, I suppose. So yeah, I'll see you then.